knowing these methods, when you talk to people, especially in civilian life, how do you know who's lying to you and not?
That gets to be more into the trained skill side of things. There's body cues, there's micro expressions. I'm not a big fan of, I don't believe that micro expressions alone do anything. I also don't believe that micro expressions without an effective baseline do anything. So don't for a second think that all the people out there pitching that you can tell if someone's lying to you just by looking at their face. It's all baloney. In my world, that's baloney.
Like the way you move your eyes or something like that?
Without knowing a baseline, without knowing
for that individual,
then you actually don't know. And an individual's baseline is based on education, culture, life experience, you name it, right? So it's huge. But when you combine facial expressions with body movements, body language, nonverbal cues, and you add on top of that effective elicitation techniques that you are in control of, now you have a more robust platform to tell if someone's lying to you.
So there's like set of like interrogation trajectories you can go down that can help you figure out a person.
Technically, they're interview
like this podcast.
Concepts. Correct. Because an interrogation is something very different than an interview. And in the world of professionals, an interrogation is very different.
What's the difference? The nature of how relaxed the thing is, or what?
So in an interrogation, there's a clear pattern of dominance. There's no equality.
Got it.
Also, there's no escape. You are there until the interrogator is done with you, right? Anybody who's ever been reprimanded by mom and dad knows what an interrogation feels like. Anybody who's ever been called into the principal's office or the boss's office, that's what interrogation feels like. You don't leave until the boss says you can leave. And you're there to answer questions, the boss asks questions. An interview is an equal exchange of ideas. You are in control of this interview, for sure. But if we were having coffee, I could take control if I wanted to take control. If I wanted to ask you personal questions, I would. If I wanted to talk to you about your background, I could.
Why am I in control of this interview exactly?
Because the person in control is the person asking questions.
I'm sitting here, as you've spoken about, my power here is I'm the quiet one listening.
You're exactly right. Guess where this conversation goes?
Yeah.
Anywhere you choose to take it, because you're the one asking questions. Every time I answer a question, I am creating a pattern of obedience to you, which subliminally, subconsciously makes me that much more apt to answer your questions.
Of course, you can always turn that and start asking me questions. It should, but you're saying that there's through conversation, you can call it interviewing. You can start to see cracks in the story of the person and the degree to which they exaggerate or lie or to see how much they could be trusted, that kind of stuff.
What I'm saying is that through a conversation, you develop a baseline, right? Like even just in the first part of our conversation, I've been able to create some baseline elements about you. Mm-hmm. You've been able to create baseline elements about me. Maybe they're just not front of mind. From those baselines, now we can push through more intentional questions to test.
Got it.
To test whether or not the person is being truthful because they're operating within their baseline, or if you are triggering sensitivities outside of their baseline, and then you can start to see their tells.
That's fascinating. Yeah, baseline, like even like the tells, right? The eye contact. Like you've probably already formed a baseline that I have trouble making eye contact, and so if you ask me difficult questions and I'm not making eye contact, maybe that's not a good signal of me lying or whatever.
Correct.
Because I always have trouble making eye contact, stuff like that. That's really fascinating.
The majority of your eye movement is to the right.
Yeah.
Your right, my left.
Yes.
Right, which is usually someone who's, if you ask micro-expressionists, that's someone who's referencing fact.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what's happening for you because you're pulling concepts out of the air. So it's also a place where you reference something other than fact. It's a place for you to find creativity. Yeah. So if I just thought that you were lying because you look up into the right, I would be wrong.
That's so fascinating. And a lot of that has to do with like habits that are formed and all those kinds of things, or maybe some right hand, left hand type of situation.
Right eye dominance.
Yeah, right eye dominance.
It's going to make you look to the right.
Is this a science or an art?
It's a bit of both. I would say that like all good art is taught from a foundation of skills. And those skills are taught in a very structured manner. And then the way that you use the skills after that, that's more of the artistic grace. So I've always called espionage an art. Spying is an art. Being able to hack human beings is an art. But it's all based in a foundation of science. You still have to learn how to mix the color palette and use certain brushes.
Do you think of that as a kind of the study of human psychology? Isn't that what a psychologist does or a psychiatrist? From this process have you learned about human nature? I mean,
Human nature. Yeah.
I suppose the answer to that could be a book, but it
I'll
probably
save
will
you.
be a book.
I'll save you that. Yeah.
But sort of, is there things that are surprising about human nature, surprising to us civilians that you could speak to?
Yes. One thing is extremely surprising about human nature, which is funny because that's not the answer I would have said. So I'm glad that you clarified this specific question. The thing that's surprising about human nature is that human beings long, like in their soul, there's like a painful longing to be with other people. And that's really surprising because we all want to pretend like we're strong. We all want to pretend like we're, independent. We all want to pretend like we are the masters of our destiny. But what's truly consistent in all people is this like longing to commune with others like us. My more practical answer about what I've learned to be the truth is that human nature is predictable. And that predictability is what gives people an incredible advantage over other people. But that's not the surprising piece. I mean, even when CIA taught me that human nature is predictable, it just made sense. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But what I never, ever anticipated was no matter where I've been in the world, no matter who I've talked to, no matter what socioeconomic bracket, is that longing. Man, it hurts. Loneliness sucks. And togetherness feels good. Even if you're together with someone you know isn't the right person,
Mm-hmm.
it still feels better than being alone.
I mean, that's such a deep truth you speak to, and I could talk about that for a long time. There is, I mean, through these conversations in general, whether it's being recorded or not, I hunger to discover in the other person that longing. You strip away the other things, and then you share in the longing for that connection. And I particularly also have detected that in people from all walks of life,
Yes.
including people that others might identify as evil
Yeah.
or hard, as completely cold. It's there.
It's there. They've hardened themselves in their search. And who knows what dark place their brain is in, their heart is in. But that longing is still there. Even if it's an ember, it's there. It's the reason why in World War I and World War II, enemy combatants still shared cigarettes on the front lines, during periods of holidays or bad weather or whatever else, because that human connection, man, it triumphs over all.
See, that's in part of what I refer to when I say love, because I feel like if like political leaders and people in conflict at the small scale and the large scale were able to tune into that longing, to seek in each other that basic longing for human connection, a lot of problems could be solved. But of course, it's difficult because it's a game of chicken. Because if you open yourself up to reveal that longing for connection with others, people can hurt you.
Well, I would go a step farther and I would say that taking the connection away, punishing, penalizing people by removing the connection is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And that's what we see. That's why we send people to jail. That's why we put economic sanctions on countries. That's why we ground our children and send them to their rooms. We are penalizing them. Whether we know it or not, we're using punitive damage by taking away that basic human connection, that longing for community.